From children to adults, there aren't many who would admit that they don't love The Sims. I love it, I still play it. Kelly and I just created the Avengers Tower. Yeah, that's our life. But with a game as successful as The Sims, you can bet there are a bucket load of creepypastas floating around the interwebs, documenting the strange going-ons within the game. Never trusted those Sims, they're up to something. So today on Top 10 Gaming, we're going to be highlighting just a few of the creepiest pastas about the game. Now this won't be a top 10 format, just me reading out a few creepy stories and you listening. Let's jump in. To start, Troost. This creepypasta uploaded to the internet by an unknown user tells the story of the time they purchased The Sims off of eBay, feeling nostalgic for the game and wanting to be reminded of the fun they had in their childhood. They installed the game immediately, booting it up. They created David, a cancer, building him a cute little bungalow in a humbled-sized lot. He got a job in the medical field. Good for David. Eventually marrying a Sim called Troost and having 2 kids, Matt and Lisa. Adorable. During one day that David was at work, Troost was home with the kids. Noticing their hunger levels were getting low, the player selected for Troost to cook dinner. As she began, David came home. He approached Troost and as he did, the oven set ablaze, Troost catching on fire in the process. The fireman came and extinguished the blaze, but not before Troost was turned into a pile of ash. The player was disappointed, but continued on with his game anyway, leaving David to his free will state. He would do nothing but mourn, forcing the player to command him to do basic tasks like shower, eat, and bathe. But as soon as David completed them, he would immediately return to mourning. However, the kids didn't react the same way, which the player thought was odd. Nighttime rolled around and the player sent everyone to bed. At 36 minutes after midnight though, David awoke, screaming. He was lying in bed, tossing and turning, screaming bloody murder. Even weirder when the player would set David as his active Sim to view his activity, a picture of the bed and word sleep didn't appear, as it usually should. Instead it showed a picture of his dead wife and the word Troost. The player tried to cancel the option but couldn't. To this day the players never figured out what caused the sleepless nights for David. Could Troost be haunting his dreams? Or worse yet, trying to live within David? Who knows? Next up we have Sims 3 Pets. Uploaded by Vivian Van Dam, this user tells the story of getting Sims 3 Pets for Christmas one year. It was brand new, the game was wrapped in plastic and had the classic new game smell, though when the girl opened it the disc was all scratched up on the front. Not thinking anything of it, she didn't say anything. However, her dog Gracie began growling at the game before getting up and walking away. She thought it strange but quickly shrugged it off. Later that night she installed the game while her boyfriend slept. Surprisingly, it booted up immediately. Figuring it was an old game, she didn't think anything of it and quickly jumped into building her Sims, creating herself, her boyfriend and their dog Gracie. However, the game wouldn't allow her to change the dog's traits, only displaying the option feral instincts. Odd. She continued on, selecting a house and moving her new family in. Disappointingly though, she was unable to play as Gracie, even though the game promoted that you could. The dog would just walk up to the Sims, growl and then stroll away. The player carried on. Her boyfriend played computer games and her Sim cooked. However, there was no sign of Gracie. She then noticed that the male Sim's traits began to go down, almost as though the game had frozen, even though she could still hear the cutting of the food that her Sim was making in the kitchen. The male Sim's eyes were blank, mouth open, staring at the screen. The player quickly became alarmed. She leaned over to her boyfriend to wake him up so he could see what was happening in the game. He wouldn't wake though. His chest wasn't moving. His eyes were blank and his mouth open. Foam then began to emerge from his mouth. She was about to scream out, but before she could, her Sim started to scream in the game. She looked at the screen and then noticed that Gracie was now back, baring her teeth and growling. Something then popped up on the queue. It said, "Be attacked." The player watched on in horror as Gracie attacked her Sim, sinking her teeth into her throat before moving to her stomach and disemboweling her. The screaming finally stopped and Gracie moved on to the boyfriend, tearing into his calf muscles. The player felt ill. She reached for the power button but the system restarted on its own. She ran out of her room, heading towards her parents, but before she could get there, she could hear the sounds of someone struggling for air. She opened the door and saw Gracie chewing on her mum's face, her eyes staring out the door. Before she could escape, Gracie was on her, drool dripping onto her face. This was the end. She was gonna die, but what she thought was man's best friend. Next up we have Creepy Mansion. Uploaded to Tumblr by video game Creepypasta, this creepypasta tells the story of a gamer who wanted to purchase a used copy of The Sims after their parents had sold theirs. That's sad. They went to a flea market and found a copy of The Sims Double Deluxe for $12. They examined the disc, only finding a few minor scratches, and when turning it over to read the back of the case, the seller immediately lowered the cost to $10. Without hesitation, they took it. They headed home and immediately went to install it, firing up the game and jumping in. Once it had loaded up, they realized that they had been thrust into a tutorial, having to guide a character named Bob Newby. They completed the tutorial and scanned around the neighborhood, noticing that the Goth family lived next door to Newby. They decided to start their own family, heading over to the pre-made folder to pick one from there. One stuck out though, the Johnson family. It consisted of 5 adults and 3 kids, with a net worth of $100K, which was odd considering all the other pre-made families had only $20K. They picked them anyway, moving the family into Sim Lane. The player then began to scan through the family's bios, which they noted were very unusual. They talked about weird obsessions. Nothing creepy, just weird. 3 of the men had jobs, a judge, a president, and an astronaut, whereas the 2 women weren't employed, and the children all had A+. They played for a while before shutting off the game for the day, vowing to return to it tomorrow. When they did though, things weren't as they left it. The family's bios had changed, one family member stating that they enjoyed taking pictures, editing them to be pale and without eyes. That's up. Another writes children's stories, hiding disturbing images within the books. After going through them, the player noticed that one of the children's hunger levels were low, but before they could feed him, he curled up and died. The Grim Reaper arrived, claiming the child. However, after the boy's death, the player noticed that his bed had also been removed from the house, and one of the chairs had disappeared from the dining table. The phone then rang, one of the Sims answered, then a message popped up on the screen. Your psychic advisor's head has just exploded. Be forewarned. Moments later, a bassinet appeared out of nowhere. An hour later, it transformed into a young boy with the name Help Me. He looked exactly the same way as the one who died from hunger. They checked his bio. It read, "Help me, so much pain." They then noticed one of the other Sims' bladder levels were low, but they wouldn't get out of bed. Then their hunger levels dropped, eventually killing them. Then, just like the boy, the bed disappeared, as did a chair from the dining room table. Eventually this happened to every single Sim in the house, leaving just the demonic boy, and no household furniture. Fed up, the player started a new game, Michael Bachelor, who lived in the same neighborhood as the Johnsons. During the game he received a phone call. It read, "You have been chosen. They will come soon." Neighbors began to come over, so the player ordered Michael to quickly make food. One of the neighbors was, "Help me." Then things began to descend into madness. Help Me broke the sink, clogged the toilet, threw tantrums, and then broke the TV. That bastard. All the neighbors began to leave until it was just Michael and Help Me left. Help Me went over to Michael and scared him, but instead of laughing it off, Michael turned pale and white. His fun and social motives were red, and his mood showed 4 red bars. Michael's eyes were also missing from his face. Freaked out, the player jumped over to the Johnsons game to see what was going on at the mansion. Then Michael came over. With him the words, "Be killed." The screen then went black and screaming could be heard and demonic laughter from Michael. The next thing they saw was Michael and Help Me hugging, before a text box appeared. "Come my child, we have a lot of work ahead of us." The phone then rang, another message appeared. "You shouldn't have bought this game at a flea market." The only available command left was to hang self. Attempting to click away, the player couldn't, and they were forced to watch on as their only remaining Sim made its way up to the balcony, tied a rope around the neck, and jumped. Well, there we have it. Were these Sim creepypastas scary enough for you? Do you want more? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another gaming vid. And until next time, see you later.